Hello, and welcome back to the Saints Squad Show. I'm your host, Dylan Sanders of Pelicans Roundtable and Saints Wire. And hey, at least we're not Mets fans, am I right?
I'm Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints podcast, and this weekend's game is just as important for Spencer Rattler as it is for anyone else.
I'm Darian Gray of Who Dat Dishin'.
This is former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore, and I'm actually not an Ole Miss fan, but I am a free T-shirt fan.
Boo! Oh, you know what? I get that.
It's the Saints Squad. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad Show, starting now.
Howdy, Who Dat Nation, and welcome back to the Saints Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Sunday and Wednesday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, we're going to be diving into how much time does Spencer Rattler have left before they, pull the emergency Tyler Shough cord. We're going to talk about other things that need to change on offense, things that need to change on defense, and then we're going to get into our game picks and bold predictions for this New York Giants versus New Orleans Saints game. But first, a little house cleaning. John is not here today. He got, he's over at AMC. He's still watching the Nicole Kidman intro. He's living life through that. But today, he's busy. So we got Darian, who is you can catch every Sunday on our Saints postcasts. But today he's helping us out on a Wednesday. Love that. Welcome to the Wednesday show, Darian. And let's just jump into it with our, exactly how much time does Spencer Rattler have? We've all said on this podcast that I don't think it is Spencer Rattler's fault that the Saints are in this hole, but they're 0-4. Losses are piling up, and at some point they will just pull the Tyler Shough cord. So exactly how much time does Spencer Rattler have before that happens to, win a game? What can he do to prolong that? Now let's start off with our, resident expert, Ross Jackson.
Oh, I thought they were our resident expert. I thought for sure you were going to Lance. I think for me, the clock can start to tick a little bit faster if the Saints don't win this weekend against the Giants. I feel like this is a really important game for Spencer Rattler, just like it's a really important game for the New Orleans Saints, an opportunity to show a little bit of momentum, an opportunity to show a little bit of growth. But for me, I think that this game is important because it can speed that clock up. I think he's got this game against the Giants. I think he's got this game against the Patriots. And then after that is kind of when the conversation gets interesting, even though they're going on the road to Chicago. And so that's kind of the way that I look at it right now. We talked to Spencer Rattler on Wednesday, and one of the things that he highlighted was that he's not playing losing football. And I completely agree with him when it comes to that evaluation. There are things to clean up. I asked him about the missed passes on the in-breaking routes. He have a great explanation for that. We can dive into that in a little bit. But when it comes to this topic, I think that this becomes probably less about Spencer Rattler's actual performance to an extent, whereas he could convince the Saints, change their mind, and you keep him out there. There's no doubt about that. But I think this becomes more about getting a look at Tyler Shough, which is not out of the ordinary for any NFL team that has young quarterbacks, and in particular, a young quarterback that they invested highly in. Even when you hear people talking about the ongoing situation with the quarterbacks over in Cleveland, everyone is talking about, Dylan Gabriel's starting this weekend, but they've eventually got to get a look at Shedeur Sanders. I think we're looking at Tyler Shough similarly. Eventually, they got to get a look at Tyler Shough. And if they don't start winning games soon, it gives them all the ammunition they need to make that change sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's, fair or unfair is a completely different question. But at some point, the move is going to happen whether or not Spencer Rattler starts playing well or playing better or not. Lance,
it's the business. It's the business.
Lance, what are your thoughts?
I think it's 2 weeks. And honestly, if he plays well and we lose these next two games, I still think he's out of there. I just think at 0-6, I'm not going to say the season is over. I will never say that. Coach Jim Mora would beat me up if he heard me say that.
He beat the diddly poo out of you, man.
He would. And I understand from a coach's perspective saying like the season's over or you're giving up. No, I don't think it's the team or the organization giving up. I think it's the team doing what they think is necessary to potentially give the offense and the overall team a spark, maybe. But at the same time, they need to get a look at Tyler Shough as well. And I don't know that they had, week 7 circled on the schedule saying like this is going to be the point where we're going to put Shough in. But I think being potentially an 0-6 football team, I think your timeline kind of speeds up a little bit, because at that point it's like, okay, what more do we need to see? He's played at a certain level, but not at a level as such to make us think like, man, this is our guy of the future. Mm-hmm. I still think he is capable, but we're 4 weeks in and we haven't seen that, in my opinion, the guy that I would hang my hat on and say, you know what, this is the quarterback of the future. I'm still cheering for him. I'm hoping that things will click in the next 2 weeks. Shoot, it might be bombs away. And we might win the next two games and be having a completely different conversation. And I'll be the first one to admit, hey, I was wrong. This dude is balling. He's finally got it together. But for what we've seen in the first month of the season, I just don't all of a sudden see all of that changing. This team figuring out how to win and him figuring out how to be the guy that we need him to be if he is to be the quarterback of the future of this organization.
Yeah. I think the conversation around Rattler in his starting position is actually really difficult at times because he is playing solid football. He's not playing losing football. And I think that is a great point by him. But like you both said, the business is the business. Dylan, I ain't gonna lie, this question had me a little bit stumped because I kept thinking, what do I think is going to happen? And I realized as I was trying to predict when we would see Tyler Shough, I kept going with the worst case scenario. I kept going with the idea that Rattler just had to fail as if nothing could change. Sorry, spoiler alert. I think the Saints win this game. And I think that changes the complexion of this whole conversation. Because if he keeps going 0-4, yeah, we'll probably see him in 2, maybe 3 weeks. But I think that Rattler wins one of these games over the next 2 weeks. I think he wins this week. And I think you have 3 winnable games between this matchup versus the Giants. You have next week against the Patriots, and I think you have the week after that against the Bears. If things go well, I think he could push through that stretch. But the next 2 games against the Bucks and then the Rams is where I think everything kind of hits the fan. So I'll give a prediction. I think we see Tyler Shough on that November 9th matchup against the Panthers because I do think that this is how it goes. You win 1, maybe 2 of the next 3 games, and then you look pretty tough or pretty rough against the Bucks and then the Rams. And now it's like, all right, not only are you not winning, you're actually having poor performance. So we're going to go ahead and get Shough in, and that gives him still 8 games to play. So it's still a solid evaluation period for your rookie.
I mean, that would be, I think, if we're trying to map out what's fair, and little is fair in the NFL. I feel like little is fair. But I mean, 8 games, then you see 9 games or whatever it is of Tyler Shough. I think that's about as fair as, you could ask for. At some point, Spencer Rattler does have to start winning games. Like there has to be a win in the win column for him, no matter how he plays. So I think that, if they do win this week against the Giants, we'll see what we all think about that coming up a little bit later. But if he does win this weekend, I think there's no chance that they pull the plug then. But if you lose this game, I think the conversations start to happen. And then especially if you lose the next game, then I feel like it has to happen. So I think you have at most 2 more losses in my eyes. Lance, what were you going to say?
Oh, no. There he goes.
Yeah. I'm fading. That was Dylan did that to me. But I think that, like the fairness thing, I think it's out the window, right? I mean, Spencer Rattler started games last year, and we gave him the benefit of the doubt this year, saying he was playing with JV players. Like, so it's not like you need to equally distribute the games. I mean, you can't do that now in a 17-game season, but I think there has been a partial look already at Spencer Rattler going into this season. So if they are to go 0-6 to start this year, I see no issue with them pulling the plug in week 7 and going to Tyler Shough at that point. So then they get a good 11 week or so look at Tyler Shough then, because to me, that would be looking forward to 2026 and specifically the draft of 2026. Because if you know that, hey, one of these guys is our guy, then you kind of know what direction you're going to go in the draft. But if you still, after getting the look at both of these guys, are like, I don't really know, then you've got questions to figure out, or, answers to what direction you need to go in the draft early in 2026.
Yeah, I think we're talking a lot about like the difference between what Spencer Rattler looks like in terms of not playing losing football versus playing winning football. Like that's kind of the delineation, I think, kind of the line that we're all kind of drawing. And I think if he hits 3 passes this season, the post to Chris Olave in the end zone up against the San Francisco 49ers, the post to Chris Olave in the end zone up against the Seattle Seahawks, and that inbreaker to Brandon Cooks, that would have given them their first lead of the season in the end zone up against the Buffalo Bills, we're probably talking about this a lot differently. Like we're saying that, Spencer Rattler has earned his opportunity to stay the quarterback. And so those like specifically are the types of things that I'm looking for in terms of seeing him go out there and play that winning brand of football and be the reason that his football team can get a win, not just them winning around him, but him helping them do that, right? And him being a big part of them doing that. And so some specificity in terms of what it is that we're looking for, I think hitting those, increasing or fixing sort of those miscommunications, those misconnections, and hitting those things. I think if he does that in this game up against the New York Giants and maintains consistency there in terms of that being a part of the game, that goes from not a concern, but goes from something that he's been missing on to something that, he and his receivers are now connecting on, then I think that that's like one of those things that is a measurable, demonstrable improvement that makes you go, okay, he's earned his opportunity to stay in that role. We said this from the very beginning. Winning the quarterback battle over the course of the offseason was about who is the week 1 starter, not who is a starter week 1 through week 18, that you were going to have to re-earn those opportunities. I think if Spencer Rattler does that and continues to take care of the football the way that he has, only 1 interception so far this season, though he's gotten away with a few that he even admitted and was like, hey, there were a couple that I want back and all those other things. I think like those are kind of those measurable pieces of improvement that I think could extend his opportunity as a starting quarterback in New Orleans.
I mean, honestly, it sounds great, like in theory of like, oh man, if he hits that Brandon Cooks pass to the end zone, we're talking about this completely differently. But the thing is, he didn't flat out.
That's why I said he's got to improve that step going forward, right? Not saying that we can excuse those things from the previous side of it, because if he had, then all those things, if he had means he missed it, right? If he had means it didn't happen. And so it's about like, okay, those are demonstrable things that we can see and say, hey, if you start finding those connections and that connection with the receiver too, then all of a sudden, like it's about moving forward from those things, not a what if with the ones before.
Yeah, and I want to add this because I think the conversation of fair and whatnot kind of came after me talking about his performance dipping against the Bucs and the Rams. It's not that I need his performance to dip. I just also think I think the Saints are going to win games. So I think the Saints winning cures a lot of those things. So it's not as if, we want to be fair to Rattler. In my opinion, fairness is Rattler starting this week, not going through the extremely tough stretch and then putting Shough in right after the first 4 weeks. After this week, fairness is out the window. I just also think that the Saints are in line to win some games. And I think that is going to be partially, he has to have that consistency. Excuse me. Obviously, I need to stop talking and get some water. But I think he's going to have some of that consistency. I think he's going to hit some of those moments. But I also think the opportunities with the running game are going to put less pressure on him. And I think it's going to help him play complementary football. I don't think he's going to come out and look like a star. I don't think he's going to come out and look like a top 15 quarterback or a top 10 quarterback. I just think that he is going to do enough to play winning football within this system over the next 3 weeks. Now, if that doesn't happen, then you'll probably see Shough start against the Bears. I think that that's very reasonable, but I just believe that Rattler is going to play winning football. So that's why I'm going to say that Shough doesn't get to start until, November.
Yeah.
Can I add something, Dylan?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like we're I feel like we've kind of lowered the bar a lot as far as what is expected for a starting quarterback for one of the 32 organizations in the NFL. Love the guy to death. Think he works tremendously hard. Think he's done a decent job. But managing a game and protecting the football is not winning teams games. Like, there has to be something extra. He has to make those throws. He has to take chances. He has to give something that elevates the players and the team around him. That's what you want your franchise quarterback to be. I'm not saying he can't still be that, but up until today, I haven't seen it. And I don't think we need to continue on this path of, well, he's not playing losing football. Well, he sure as heck isn't playing winning football, in my opinion.
Let me ask you something.
We'd be winning games.
I think you brought up there was a specific term in what you just said that I thought was interesting. You talk about him being a franchise quarterback, and I do agree. He has not shown the signs of being a franchise quarterback. And when I say franchise, I mean somebody who could lead your team for years to come. But if he looks like a solid quarterback, long term. If he looks like a solid quarterback, not franchise, but solid quarterback, at what point do you pull the plug? Right? Because a solid quarterback can win you some games. It's not going to be a franchise guy. I do think the bar has been lowered. I do want to be clear on where I view him. If he's playing solid, when do you pull that plug? Solid with wins. Let me add that caveat. Solid with wins.
I was going to say that if he's winning games, then his stay is extended as the starting quarterback. But I don't see solid as being the future. I just don't. I don't. And the organization should not. The goal should be to have a top tier guy at quarterback, because the reality is you got to have one of those to win it all. You have to.
Yeah, true.
Think about how great those recent 49ers teams have been, and they haven't been able to win the Super Bowl. I think Brock Purdy is a heck of a player. He's not a great quarterback, in my opinion. I just don't think so.
Yeah.
I think he can play well. He can elevate the guys around him. But when stuff hits the fan, he's not making the plays that Patrick Mahomes makes. He's not making the plays that Jalen Hurts makes. I just don't see it. And not every team is going to be able to have those type of guys, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, guys that elevate those around them. But that should be the goal for every team, to get one of those. You want somebody that makes everybody around them better.
Yeah, nobody's going into the draft hoping that they're going to walk out of there with an 8-win quarterback. Everybody wants a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And so you've got to prove 100%. That you're that guy.
100%.
And I think we can certainly we've danced around it. We've talked about it a little bit, but I think the biggest area that Spencer Rattler can help himself, outside of one drive that I saw in training camp, and I was only there for a couple of days, so but also one drive in the preseason, he has been very, very, very lacking in the red zone. And when it comes time to put points on the board, I think Spencer Rattler has needed to improve on the actual execution of getting points onto the board as the quarterback. And I think, that Brandon Cooks pass is a good example. I just think that if the Saints get into position to score, it would be great to see them actually score points this time, as opposed to hoping that, we all thought Blake Grupe was going to be automatic this season. Hasn't been the case. So getting into the end zone, I think, as silly as that may sound in terms of obviously, but I think actually just scoring points could be enough to help Spencer Rattler last a few more weeks. But if it doesn't start to happen, if they don't start to win these games, the switch is going to happen soon.
Yeah, they can start by not running reverse passes in the red zone. That would be cool.
Yeah, maybe wait until you have like a season of doing well before you start acting like the Detroit Lions and calling like fake flea flickers and stuff or whatever.
Leave the Philly in Philly.
Yeah.
The fake did you guys see the fake tush push?
Yeah, they tried to run that on the Saints last year. It didn't work, and then they nailed it this time now.
Yeah, I would have pulled that out a little later.
Well, speaking of offensive creativity, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit outside of the quarterback position. What needs to happen? What needs to change? What, maybe some things need to stay the same. What needs to happen on the offensive side of the ball for this week for the Saints to actually
You're muted, Dylan.
Okay. All right. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Whether you're a casual fan or just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. There are already lines for this weekend's Saints versus Giants game. And guess what, guys? I have shocking news. The Saints are favored to win a game. That's right. They're at minus 122 money line, minus 1.5 on the spread. And if you feel like you feel like that's what you want to put your money on, that's a $5 bet on the Saints money line. If they win, that would be $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. For $5 bets, if it hits, that's $300 in bonus bets. All right, I'm unmuted. Let's get to the next segment. It is offense. What needs to happen? What needs to change? What needs to stay the same, maybe, for the Saints to start winning games, and especially this weekend against the New York Giants? Let's start with Darian. What do you think needs to happen on the offensive side of the ball this week for the Saints to win this game?
Well, if you're on video, you can just go ahead and read that button. Saints rushing attack must stay efficient. That's what it is. At the end of the day, the Saints need to be able to run the football. They need to be able to block. The blocking is probably the most important part because I feel like that's where they've lacked. I think the talent is where I have my trust in, but you have to be able to block as well. This week is going to be important. Obviously, New York is a team that has struggled against the run. They have some really good pass rushers, so you don't want them to be able to get activated in must-pass situations. But this is deeper than just 1 week. You did it against Buffalo. It was your recipe for success. I think it's your recipe for success against New York as well. But just in general, this is your recipe for success as a team. I don't care if Spencer Rattler is the quarterback. I don't care if Tyler Shough is the quarterback. I don't care if they decide Taysom Hill decides he needs to be the quarterback. You need to run the football, and you need to lean into that because I think that's going to give you your best scenario for success.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think like all of this starts with run game and then a fast start, right? The Saints scored their first opening drive touchdown in their first quarter points on the road against Buffalo. Why? Because of their run game. Stop motion, big pickup right off the bat to Alvin Kamara, then the 18-yard run. Rumbling, stumbling, bumbling by Kendre Miller, breaking through a bunch of tackles and even dipping under the arms of a tackler at one point. That's what it took to get that team started off with a fast start. I think doing exactly that, not exactly that, obviously, but being able to build with your run game in order to put points on the board early, I think that's got to be a major part because you want the crowd in this game and you want to win the physical side of this game. And New York's front is really good, particularly when it comes to pass rushing. And so if you have the ability to keep them honest with a good run game, I think that ends up going a really long way for you.
Yeah. I think the biggest circle right now is the Saints offense finally started to look good, and it was because the run game started working. Kendre Miller looked like Kendre Miller that we thought he would 3 years ago. Calvin Kamara looks like he did 3 years ago, and it's working out well. So if you have these two picking up 5 yards a carry, it'll open up more for the passing game. And, at the bottom line, if you're picking up 4 or 5 yards a carry, you'll get some first downs, you'll get some points. So I think that the run game is really where it all starts this week. But I don't think it's all where it ends. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do definitely think the wide receivers outside of Spencer Rattler needing to be more efficient. The wide receivers need to do their job. They need to get open. They need to, bottom line, if they're open, they need to catch the ball. They need to actually, put it in the hands. Lance, I saw you shaking your head. What do you think?
Well, look, I love you guys, and I appreciate your insight. The run game is important, but leave it to the resident wide receiver here.
Yeah,
it's not, and honestly, this is not a passing thing that I'm referring to. It's the big play.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah.
The biggest play of the season. One play over 30 yards on the entire season. 4 games in, 39 yards to Rashid Shaheed. Cool. 1. Now, beyond that, the longest run we've had all season, 18 yards. And if we're looking at big plays in totality, right, we've only had 2 other passes go for 20 yards or more. One was for 20 yards and the other was for 21 yards. So if we're talking about Spencer Rattler and not being able to score points, I think not being able to push the ball down the field and or have plays that break is making his job so much harder. I'm not saying he needs to drop back and throw 50, 60, 70-yard bombs every play, but I think that we have got to find a way to make these drives shorter in play amount with having more big plays. It doesn't make any sense to have all these speedsters on the outside and we're averaging 7.8 yards per reception. What is happening? Like, no wonder why we can't score any points, because we have no big plays. So every single drive is going to be 10, 12, 15, 18, 19 plays. It's hard to do that consistently in the NFL. And you see, generally, the teams that are scoring more points are the teams that lead the league in big plays. It just goes hand in hand.
Explosive plays equal points.
To me, I understand you've got a young quarterback, but at some point, Kellen Moore's got to open it up, and he's also got to coach his quarterback, whoever that might be. It's Spencer Rattler still this week. Let that thing fly, man. Even if guys aren't totally open, at some point you got to give them some opportunities to go up and make plays for you, or else it's just not going to happen on its own. Like, you can throw them all day in practice if you want, and I'm sure they look pretty over there on Airline Drive. But if you're doing that and then you're not trying to do it in the game, then what are we even doing? What are we doing? We're playing in a game with half of our tools in the toolbox. Right? Like, we should be afforded every single tool that we've got at our disposal each week, and not going out there and trying to. I don't even know what the proper word is, but there's got to be some different level of effort when it comes to trying to create big plays for this offense, because clearly we need those big plays in order to score points more consistently.
We talked about going into that Buffalo Bills game and being like, this is a game where you have to be aggressive, you have to take risks, you got to take chances, because you're going up against the Buffalo Bills, who are a team that are much better than you and everything. They attempted 1 pass of more than 20 yards in that game, a single one and everything. And so, like, you can't be that team anymore. You've got to start to open this up 100%. I do think that the run game aids in you being able to do that, because it gives you all those tools in terms of play action and things like that. But it doesn't matter if you're not going out there and taking those chances and taking those risks and taking those shots. You got to start doing that.
You know, I haven't put on a helmet since high school, so forgive me, and I didn't play quarterback when I did it, but I'm trying to put myself into the psyche of a player, and I feel like from Rattler, maybe you're trying to be cautious. Maybe you're trying to, all right, I don't want to make any mistakes because I know I have Shough breathing down my neck. But at this point, I kind of feel like the caution is going to lead to not only him breathing down your neck, but him surpassing you. And it kind of feels like you're playing on borrowed time. The risk versus the reward, you maybe felt like the risk was outweighing the reward. To me, the idea of being aggressive going downfield. And I just don't think that Rattler does it well or has done it well this year, to be honest. But still, he hasn't been accurate. But I think maybe you got to get more aggressive. At this point, you can't sit there and say, I just want to protect the football because that's going to be enough for me to keep my job. I don't think it is anymore. I don't think it is, because it's also not going to lead to wins. It's like you said, explosive plays are going to lead to points. And I think that one thing we haven't spoke about, but it is directly related to the quarterback yet again, amongst everything, but to Rattler specifically, Dylan brought it up at the end of the first segment. There needs to be better red zone efficiency. There needs to be better taking advantage of opportunities to score. That has not been something that the Saints have done well at any point in the game, right? And I think last week they may have had their better red zone percentage or best red zone percentage of the year. But it hasn't been a success, whether it's going with the double reverse silly special, as we called it on Sunday's episode, right? Or if it was just not being able to make that connection in the red zone. you are not finishing when you get down there. And one thing that we spoke about heavily in the first week and probably the preseason that I was here the last episode of the preseason, is the Saints aren't good enough to keep shooting themselves in the foot. And shooting yourself in the foot does not always look like penalties. Sometimes it looks like errant throws. Sometimes it looks like trying to get too cute in your play calling. Sometimes it's not leaning in to your strength when it needs to be leaned into. And most importantly, it looks like settling for field goals and missing field goals at times too. This is a huge issue for the Saints that if they don't get under wraps, you're not going to win this game, and you're not going to win. You're already not going to win many games. You're going to win even less than I think we expect you to win.
And Ross, you saw him practice more than me, but I feel like I would be shocked if after the first game of Tyler Shough starting and getting a chance, we come here and say, man, he just didn't push the ball down the field. He didn't take chances. I would be really shocked if that was the case.
I think I agree with you because that is kind of his bread and butter. But I mean, look, we all saw during training camp that Spencer Rattler was the aggressive one and that Tyler Shough was the conservative one, and that he was the one that wasn't taking as many risks and things like that. But then as training camp went on, he got a little bit less risk averse, got a little bit more aggressive, all those other things. So you would hope that trajectory would continue forward as his time on the scout team, where you can go out there and make some mistakes and do things kind of at a low pressure situation. And so maybe that is the case, but I really don't know. I really don't know. I can't say for sure until we actually see it, but I do know that whatever it was that Spencer Rattler tapped into at the beginning of training camp, where he was much more aggressive, is exactly what he needs to tap into now. Dylan, I'm going to start hosting if you keep muting.
I pressed unmute and it muted. So anyway,
stop muting. Stop muting. There's no reason to mute.
It's a whole thing. Anyway, the Saints have missed 47 tackles this year, and even more needs to happen on the defensive side of the ball for the Saints to get better and start winning games. And we'll jump into the defensive side of the ball when we come back. Coming up next. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't own a Mazda. I'd much rather a Mazda than what I have right now. But I know someone that does and swears by it. So I'm going to give him a call and see what he thinks of his Mazda car. Because what?
Hello.
Hey, Dom.
Hey, what's up?
I know you drive a Mazda, right?
Yes, I do.
What do you think of it?
I love it. It's really reliable, really fuel efficient, and yeah, no complaints. I feel like it's getting me everywhere I need to go.
Man, thank you. I hear that they craft cars for those who do more than simply move. Do you do more than simply move?
Yeah, it's the perfect car to live life with, if I'm being honest.
Man, thank you for accepting this random phone call. Man. When you follow
random
that move, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved.
Oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie. Let's jump into the defensive side of the ball. I teased it earlier. The 47 missed tackles, I think, so far through 4 games is a big circle mark of things that need to improve. What else needs to change? Because I think it's not just tackling that have led to the Saints being 0-for-4. Let's see what needs to change on the defensive side of the ball. Let's start off with Lance Moore.
More turnovers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm Lance Moore. I'm going to say right now.
Segment
it froze. I was going to be you for a second.
Oh, my bad. They got to create more turnovers. It's they have got to create more turnovers. We just talked in the last segment about the lack of efficiency that the offense has had in scoring and specifically in the red zone. Imagine the offense being able to get the ball extra times and potentially with shorter fields. I think that is a necessary part of this team potentially being successful in a game. I'm not even talking for the season. I think in a per game basis, winning the turnover battle would give them an opportunity to win games, a better opportunity, I should say, as opposed to being a team that has got an even turnover ratio, which I would say is commendable for a team that's 0-4. But again, we're not here for the moral victories, right? We want to win games. So I think this defense, while tackling is paramount, I think creating more turnovers for the offense is second most important.
Yeah. I definitely think creating turnovers is very important. I definitely think tackling is important, especially in a week where you're going up against Cam Scatteraboo, who is takes 5 tries to tackle every time you try to tackle him. It's crazy. So I think there are a lot of the small things that need to change on the defensive side of the ball. Ross, what do you think?
Yeah, I think to go along with takeaways and turnovers, which Lance, I completely agree with you on that. The thing that would complement that and maybe help to lead to that is going to be more pressure from this defensive front as well. I know it's basic to pair rush and coverage, but really like that's kind of how you win football games. And so for New Orleans right now, which has the lowest pressure percentage, now second lowest pressure percentage in the NFL so far this season with 25.4. Actually, they're tied for the lowest with the Carolina Panthers, not company you want to be in. That's a spot where this team has to get better. They actually do well when it comes to getting to the quarterback and actually getting sacks now. Like their sack percentage is way up. They're up to 9% at which is tied for 8th in the league. So they're making plays at the quarterback when they're getting there. Not 100% of the time. We've seen some of those almost sacks that turn into big gains and stuff like that. That's obviously still there, but you're not going to eliminate those 100%. But making plays at the quarterback has not been an issue. The biggest thing has been getting to the quarterback at all to begin with in terms of the beginning of the conversation. And so I think that's got to be the big thing, especially when you go into a game like this up against a rookie quarterback who has good legs and is not afraid to go out there, has the confidence to go out there and try to make every throw on the field. If you can get a little bit of that pressure on, then that will help. Jackson Dart was 0-4 on third downs when he was pressured last week. That same formula would be good for New Orleans to replicate on the defensive side.
Ross, real quick, while we're with you and while we're talking about getting to the quarterback, what's going on with Chase Young? When do you think that we're going to see him? Do you know at all?
No idea.
Is there any clarity?
I'll say this, and maybe I'm saying too much when I say this, but for me, like when he didn't go on injured reserve, that gave the indication that there was an expectation that he could be back within the first 4 games. I think that's fair to say. And then coming back after those 4 games into week 5 and ruling him out on Wednesday, not even getting to like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not even getting to Friday to where you have to give a game designation after 4 weeks in a row where you've taken it all the way down to not game time, but taking it all the way down to Friday. And all of a sudden he's ruled out on Wednesday. Like there's something weird about that. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but there's something that's strange about that. And so I genuinely have no idea. We'll find out, I guess. But what we know already at this point is that we're not going to see him in week 5. And so I think that's a major detriment for New Orleans. I think that's a bad look on Chase Young. In terms of like what the expectation was for him coming in, not a bad look on him, but maybe a bad look for him coming in this one. Like that's a tough look, man. And so I think getting ruled out on a Wednesday was just strange. It was just odd. And if I'm being honest, I think it's loud. I don't know what for what reason just yet, but I think I'll do digging on that.
I think you do. You just don't want to say it.
Which one? I'll tell you if it's true or not, or if I truly think it or not.
If I was to guess, he had some sort of a setback.
Oh yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, that's totally fair. But I'm also thinking that like, what if it's Kellen Moore sending a message? You know what I mean? Like, there's other pieces to this too that I think are really interesting. But I think you're right. Like I asked, like, is there a setback here? Has anything gone wrong? Of course, we're not going to be told if that's the case. But I think you're 100% right that like it's clear that whatever their expectation was is not what the reality is. And so whether that's a setback or whether it was worse than what was initially anticipated, some 2 things, 1 + 1 did not equal 2, 2 + 2 did not equal 4. That's why he's out for a 5th week now, whatever it is that you want to look at. But I think that's 100% a possibility that there was something there that has now extended this at some point.
And I think the worst part about it is that the pressure probably doesn't get better. until you get a Chase Young playing at Chase Young's level. Like I don't think that, in my opinion, Carl Granderson is not a number one. I know we don't usually use that term for this position, but I don't think he's my lead edge rusher. Cam Jordan was supposed to be playing a third edge rusher role. I think that people are stepping up, and I even have questions on whether or not Chase Young is going to be the guy who's going to be my 10 sack a season edge rusher. So I don't think that this,
especially at this
point. Well, not this year.
No, definitely not this year. But I think that the problem is this is one of the biggest issues on the team, and the one guy that you still have that you feel like can help you the most is not on the field. Like, we can have conversations about the personnel that's on the team, but the personnel on the team needs to be on the field. I can tell you that. And as long as Chase Young isn't on the field, you are going to field an extremely more lackluster pass rush, in my opinion. It's funny that they flipped from getting a lot of pressures and no sacks to getting more sacks and not a lot of pressure. Like, I guess you can't be a beggar and a chooser, I guess. I don't know. It feels like,
watch me try.
Be happy. Yeah, be happy.
Yeah, being last in the league in pressures is you could definitely beg and choose when it comes to making that play.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, what you see in that issue is third and longs don't feel super comfortable. Third and mediums feel scary. You're looking at, I think that there's just been too many catch and run opportunities. So on the back end, you need to have a little bit stickier coverage. I think like it's just so many issues, but it does feel like the first domino to fall often is the inability to get to the quarterback. And I didn't mean to lean in on that one so much, but I thought that was a good conversation I was having. I'm going to take the easy one and say tackling. Tackling is an issue on this team, and it needs to be said. I know that just stating 47 missed tackles, I don't think is enough. And especially going into this week, New York is going to try to spread you out and run right at you. Right? They're going to try to spread you out so you can't have a bunch of people in the box, and then you're going to be tasked with having to tackle Cam Scatterboo. And that's tough for a lot of people. And tackling anybody has been tough for the Saints. So it's kind of like, where do you go with this situation? It just feels like a real nightmare scenario for New Orleans' defense. So I know it's the easy one. I know it's the lead is like, all right, try to find something else. But no, we need to stress this even more. This is one of, if not the biggest issue on the Saints defense.
Yeah. Just to J-Rod, while we're on the topic, yes, the Saints are top 10 in sacks. They're tied for 7th. But that's that's why analytics exist. That's why advanced stats exist. Because is there anyone right now saying the Saints have a top 7 pass rush in the NFL or a top 7 defensive line in the NFL? No. Right. I mean, we're talking about the Giants being afraid of the Giants pass rush. They have one less sacks than the Saints. They're lower. They're below the top 10. So, it's not just, one stat says it all. I definitely think that the pass rush needs to be better. The tackling needs to be better. The secondary needs to be better. Honestly, most things need to be better on the defense side of the ball.
You say it's not just one stat. When it was a pressure-heavy defense, like, they were getting a lot of pressure, but they weren't getting sacks.
Like, complain about that too. Yeah.
And everybody would say, Ross, everybody can testify. Everybody would say, you got to look at the pressures too, right? Like, that would be the thing. No sacks, you got to look at the pressures. And now it feels like we're in a different scenario, but saying the same thing. And it's a great representation of how these stats are supposed to work together. And it's the thing that we've been preaching for years. I think that people have said it for a long time. Hey, it's sacks and pressures. It's not just don't worry about sacks. No, it's you need both of them. And typically getting a lot of sacks, you would hope would lead to a lot of pressures. But I guess this is proof that it doesn't always work that way. But I just think that what you said about it is not being a one stat type of conversation. This was a perfect representation of it.
And to be honest too, like some of those sacks were quarterback running out of bounds at the 0-yard line or going to scramble and getting tackled for no gain, which registers as a sack. Like not all of the Saints don't have quick pass rush win sacks to where they win at the line of scrimmage and then immediately get to the quarterback. They see it happen to them quite a bit. They don't get free runners that get into the backfield and get sacks. We haven't seen that since Alontae Taylor's sack on that 3rd down in the first game up against Arizona, right? So there's also that part of it too, to where it's like, when 11 of those sacks exist, but 3 of them or 4 of them are quarterbacks running and getting no gain or running out of bounds at the line of scrimmage, there's important context to that. Like not every sack is created equal, I guess.
How do you feel about the blitz packages that the Saints have been putting on? Like
What blitz packages?
ad read. Enough said.
I mean, that is an upset. Just real quick, so we talk about it while we're talking about the defensive side of the ball. As we talked about, when do they pull the plug? When do they move on to Tyler Shough at quarterback? I think some changes could be coming soon on the defensive side of the ball. I do think we see Quincy Riley start this week, maybe. I think that would be, the biggest one right now. And then the question becomes, when does Pete Werner, see Danny Sussman step in? I think that is
or Isaiah
Stallberg. That's a much tougher question to answer, in my opinion. But I definitely think that he needs to play better than he has if he wants to hold off two young, impactful linebackers, or at least we think they're going to be impactful.
If nothing else, getting the evaluation of those guys, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about this from the quarterback position, like you need to see the rookie. Well, that goes for a couple of different positions as well. And we've already seen the value of that at corner and safety. There's obviously going to be those types of conversations at every level of the defense and on the offense where that's available too.
Yeah. I think that could be the next big thing that we see impact this defense, is starting to see some of those younger players.
Christian Boyd got his first snaps, by the way. So youth is not just the rookies. You also got a guy like Boyd coming in. So I definitely agree, Dylan. I think it's on the way too.
Cool deal. All right. Well, speaking of ad breaks, let's get to it. Coming up next, we're going to close out our show by going through our game picks and bold predictions. And if you listen closely, you might get a little peek at what's going to happen. Lance perfectly called last week with the interception. So maybe that'll happen again coming up next. Most people cannot name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. I can get like 3 or 4 off the top of my head. I can't give them all. So whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, $20 sandwiches, as we like to joke on this show, because that was so crazy. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together into one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. We're talking about all these advanced stats. Pro Football Focus lets us see missed tackles, pressures, all that stuff. Think of Monarch Money for that, but for your financial stuff that's actually important to your day-to-day life. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching one of those dirty spreadsheets. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those alone saved me money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, let's close out our show today by going through our game picks and bold predictions for this weekend's game against the New York Giants. The last couple of weeks have been kind of easy for us to go ahead and be like, all right, well, the Saints are going to lose. But as we talked earlier, the Saints are favored in this one. So let's see who's going to go with it. Let's go with Darian. Kick us off with your game pick and bold prediction.
Well, I already gave my game pick earlier. I think that the Saints win this game. I'm going to go about 24-21. I think it's going to be a win, first win in the column for the Saints. And I'll go my bold prediction. This was the Paulson Adebo revenge game. Then suddenly it became the Jackson Dart revenge game. And I think that you're going to see a deep shot from Rashid Shaheed on Paulson Adebo this week. So that's my bold prediction.
Oh, okay. So how do you think Rashid Shaheed is going to fare in that? Pushing you for more details.
I think I'll say this. It feels like he'll get a one deep shot type of game and then maybe a couple of catches sprinkled in. I don't know if he's going to go and be the leading receiver again like he was last week. I think that there's going to be a bigger performance from Olave And I think that Shaheed's going to be the guy who has that one deep shot that we're used to seeing from him. I just think there's so much emphasis on pushing the ball downfield this week. I really do. And I think that Rattler will give the opportunity. I don't know if it's going to be an accurate opportunity. I feel like some of them have not been on point. Most of them haven't been. But I do think that he's going to put the ball up and try this week a little bit more. It'll be interesting, though. That's my bold prediction, and that's my my score.
All right. Ross, I'm not going to make you be the first one to say it this week. I'm going to go ahead and be the bearer of bad news. I think the Giants win this game, and I think it's not going to be close. I'm going to go 28-17. I'm going Giants winning. And my bold prediction will be, similar to the last couple of weeks. There's going to be some things to take advantage of or take away positively, and I'm going to go with Quincy Riley getting his first interception. I think that this is the perfect week for that to happen. It's a young quarterback. We've seen Quincy Riley play against the quarterbacks with this much level of experience in the NFL, basically none in college, and I think that that's where he showcased his ability to get to the ball, his ball hawking skills, and I think that he'll come down with an interception on Jackson Dart. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I do think that the Giants go ahead and win this game off the back of Cam Scatterbo and I think they just have more momentum. They have a win in the scorecard. They've shown that they can win a game, and that's something that this Saints team hasn't done yet. And until they do that, I really don't see myself picking them to win a game. So I'm going to go ahead with Giants 28-17. Quincy Riley getting his first interception in this one. Let's go over with Lance with your pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this environment that Jackson Dart is walking into is going to be different than last week, obviously, and different than any other environment that he's played in his entire career. In an organization and a fan base that is dying for a victory, something to celebrate. And I actually think that the Saints will win this game. I was kind of toying with the score a little bit. But I think it's going to be relatively close, 27-24. I just think coming back home after the last 2 weeks, I think a lot of things will have gotten fixed. And I think a little home cooking is going to do our guys well this week. And my bold prediction is that the Saints are not going to have one, but two plays, 50-plus yards in this game. Two big time plays. Because I think, look, it's that time, right? Like we're coming back home. We're 0-4. What do we have to lose? Like, let's let it fly. And I do think this is the week that we get the big play back and we're scoring some more points and we start to look like the team that we all thought that we could be. That might not last very long, but I do think that this is the week that it's going to happen. So I'll say Saints 27-21. Along with two 50-plus yard plays in this game.
That'd be awesome.
Take it.
Ross.
All right.
Rose.
I've got the Saints winning.
Whoa!
This is the first time I've chosen them to win. I'm sticking with my preseason prediction. This is where I said that the Saints would get their first win, and that was when they had Malik Neighbors. Now, I thought they were going to be going up against Sierra's husband. I didn't think they were going to be seeing Jackson Dart here. But in any case, I still think that this is doable. Brandon Staley is a good defensive mind. I think he'll know some things to throw at this rookie quarterback. I think there's an opportunity to build some confidence there. I'm going with the Saints 20, and I'm going Giants 16. And then my bold prediction, and Lance, I'm going to let you be the judge of whether or not mine is too similar to yours. But I'm going Spencer Rattler throws 2 touchdowns in this game, one of which is over 40 yards. The other one is over 15 yards, high red zone kind of thing on an in-breaking route. And then he hits that route that we've seen him miss a couple of times. But I think it's the explosives. I think that we start to see some of that in this game too. The thing that I want to acknowledge is that we talked a lot about the things that Spencer Rattler needs to continue to do because we've watched him develop. And so the idea of him doing things better each week is not foreign. And so this is an opportunity for him to show that in this game. Just because we say that there are things that Spencer Rattler can do better, just like Spencer Rattler says that there are things that he can do better, doesn't mean that he can't do them better. And I think oftentimes people mistake critique for criticism. And that's not what this is. Here's an opportunity here for the New Orleans Saints to build some confidence and an opportunity for Spencer Rattler to extend that lifespan as a Saints starting quarterback for this season. So I'm going 2 touchdowns for him, 1 of 40 plus, 1 of 15 plus.
I find it really interesting that the 3 who voted that the Saints would win or picked the Saints to win, we all have a similarity that we think something downfield is going to happen. Lance says 2 50-yard bombs. I say a deep shot from Rashid Shaheed. Ross says a 40-yard touchdown. I just think it's really interesting that we all have that common thread. And I didn't text about it. You know, they didn't put me in a group chat in case anybody viewing.
What group chat?
What group chat?
What group chat?
What group
We
chat?
have a group chat. I individually text everybody.
Lance is the most truthful person on this show because you see how he didn't say anything. Like, he's not in the chat. Like, but I do think it's really fascinating that we all had that in common. So I wonder where that similarity came from.
I think a big part of it is because we all know, right. We all know that, like, if you're going to win this game, you're going to need those plays. And so the 3 of us that say, hey, they're going to win, we say that play is going to be a part of it. Dylan, who says that they're not going to win, is like, yeah, the defense is going to do a thing. You know what I mean? And like those things go hand in hand, I think.
And go ahead, Lance.
No, I mean, the team is also 0-4 with, you know, no signs of winning the Super Bowl this year. So let's take the training wheels off and play some football.
Yeah. And see, you know, as y'all think, you know, the Saints win this game with the, you know, finally it's going to happen. There's going to be a big play on defense, you know, a big play on offense. I look at it as, hey, maybe the defense will do something, but you got Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence staring down your barrel and an offensive line that has needed to be better. And I'm just like, is he going to have time to do that? Because you know, I have my questions about the offense being able to do it against this week against the best pass rush I think that they have seen so far this season. Sorry, Joey Bosa, you're not the same Joey Bosa that you were in college. I think that this pass rush is going to be different, and I think overall the defense maybe not be that strong, but I think we've seen a lot of question marks and had a lot of worry about the offensive line. This defensive line is not going to be one to hold their hand and be like, it's okay, we'll take it easy on you this week. I'm really interested to see how both the offensive line, like Kelvin Banks is someone I'm going to be watching heavily this week. Let's see how healthy Talise Fuanga, because I think he looked much better while healthy last week. It's just going to be a different beast this week with some young, fast, explosive pieces all over that defensive line, both outside and in. So I just don't think this is the defense or defensive line that they turn the corner against, because it's just not the easiest that they've seen. They've seen worse and played worse against worse. So
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's fair. Kendrick Miller against the pass. So I'm just saying that pass rush has been curved before, and I think a big part of that is because of how bad the Giants are against the run game. If you can get the run game going, it forces those defensive linemen to be a little bit more honest and not just be able to pin their ears back and go. So Saints have to be able to cash in other places before they can cash in on those downfield plays. But honestly, like, one of the biggest things that I saw coming out of that game in Buffalo was at one of the quarter breaks, and they were on the 40-yard line. They had a first down. They were coming out of the quarter break, and it was the perfect opportunity for a deep shot, and they weren't able to get that. It's those kinds of opportunities that I'm looking at for them to be able to cash in, not just like the 3rd and 10 where the pass rush is going to be bearing down on them. It's those other opportunities that are those big time shot chances that they just can't miss out on in this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned the run game setting it up. I think that's going to be pivotal. I want to see a lot of Kendre Miller again. I think I read that he played his career high in snaps last week. 14 for Alvin, 11 for Kendre, if I'm not
rushes.
Yeah, rushing attempts. I want to see more of it. I want to see more Kendre and Alvin in the backfield together. We've seen one on that fullback dive. There was a swing play out to Alvin that Kendre was the lead blocker-ish, because it didn't really end up being successful. But I like the idea of it. Like, I want to see more Kendre in the backfield. I want to see Kendre continue to be a part of this run game. You don't only have to have the run go through Alvin Kamara. Like, this can be a two-headed monster. This should be a two-headed monster. Continue to use your guy. I know that no one wants to talk about replacing Alvin, and I'm not going to talk about it either. But what I will say is there is life after Alvin. It doesn't have to be trade him. But Kendre Miller is auditioning for a spot in the same way that we talk about a lot of these other young guys. It may not be replacing a starter like Stutzman is going to replace Werner in our head, or Riley replacing Yadam, but this is the idea of Kendre being your running back moving forward, or one of your running backs moving forward, is just as equally an audition as these other players. So I want to see a lot more of Kendre Miller. And, also, can his body hold up to that? That's one of the reasons to see more Kendre Miller, so you can get that entire evaluation.
Breaking news, this just in, Darian Gray just said that the Saints are trading Alvin Kamara.
Leave it to the Locked On TCU guy to talk about Kendre Miller before the
episode. I almost got the Kendre thing back here. I was like super close. I was super close, but I got LT. So
I love it. Real quick, 15 carries for Alvin Kamara. My bad. I led you astray. But real quick, Lance, the 250-yard plays, both passing plays? Or do you think one could be?
Two big plays. Two big plays.
That would be awesome.
Dylan's like, I don't get it. Where's the confidence?
Man, I picked the Saints. I picked the Saints to beat the 49ers, and ever since that didn't happen, I've just been like, all right, maybe just prove me wrong first, and then I'll reconsider. But I gotta think. Anyway, maybe I'm just in the mindset of do whatever you gotta do to get like a Dante Moore in the building. Maybe a lot of tease a little bit episode, maybe a week or two, because college football season, mock draft season's coming up. I love mock draft season. But until then, thank you for listening to the Saints Squad Show. You can check out me, Lance, Darian, and Ross on our socials for the latest. And then, of course, you can always check in Locked On Saints with Ross Jackson for the absolute up-to-minute, latest, most recent episodes. You already listened because it's the best Saints podcast out there. Shout out to Locked On Saints. But until then, we'll be right back here on Sunday, right after the Saints play the Giants. So whether talk about if the Saints got those two big plays or if the pass rush proved too much for the Saints to overcome and they lost. But we'll be right back here on Sunday, immediately after the game, or 5 to 10 minutes. Be realistic after the game to talk about what's coming up next. Until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all soon.